Thank you. That was a great introduction. Welcome to the last talk. It's very impressive for anyone who has made it this far. I jumped on the conference at the start, had a big nap, woke up, and here I am. It's a bit unfortunate because the talks look really interesting this year, so it's a bit sad to miss it. I'm going to have to jump on YouTube when they're released. I did catch Daniel's talk, and I have to say Nuxt fonts is definitely one of my go-to modules for anything I'm building. Super awesome, and it kind of goes in with what we're talking about today, which is third parties. We're specifically talking about scripts in this instance, but relying on third-party fonts will have a bit of overlap there. So yeah, it's 8 o'clock for me in the morning. I've got my coffee. We are going to get through this last talk together, and yeah, I'm super excited to be here. This is my second Nuxt Nation talk. I did one 2 years ago for the version 1 of Unhead, where we talked about some of the new SEO features within it, like use SEO meta. But yeah, today we're talking about Nuxt Scripts, why it was created, what it's solving, and yeah. So I'll just give a quick shout out before we begin. Nuxt Scripts was a collaborative effort between the Nuxt core team and Google Aurora. So shout out to those guys for helping us getting it done. And big shout out to Daniel and Julian from the Nuxt core team. So let's get into it, shall we? We're going to start with a quick little stat here. So Google, they have all the benchmarks of what they want from us. They want a 200 millisecond total blocking time on mobile for a good green performance. And if we're relying on third-party scripts, we've completely blown this budget already. So if you've tested your site with Lighthouse, PageSpeed Insights, then you know the issue here. The total blocking time is usually the big red number. But yeah, before we dive too deep into it, my name is Harlan. I'm part of the Nuxt core team, and yeah, I've built some packages in the Nuxt ecosystem. My socials are there. Please connect. I love to see what you guys are up to, and yeah, it makes everything much more enjoyable. Little fun facts about me before we get into it. Last year was pretty crazy for me. I was basically living out of hostels, doing open source, managed to go through Asia and Europe, so that was very cool. And very fortunate enough to meet some of the other Nuxt core team members in Amsterdam, Paris, and VueFest Japan. So that was really amazing. And yeah, actually, the intro was a lie. I very recently moved to Melbourne from Sydney. Melbourne is great. I'm a bit of a coffee snob myself, so it's really great for me, as Melbourne is the coffee capital of the world. And evidence of that, I guess, is that within 30 minutes of me, there's like 10 coffee roasters. So it's a good time. If you're ever in Melbourne, please hit me up. I love connecting to the community. So the thesis for Nuxt Scripts is third-party scripts are inherently bad, and there's not too much we can do about them. They're usually out of our control that we need to add them to the website. And not all third parties are bad, just most of them. So to look at, what's going on, what's bad about them, we're going to look at data from the Web Almanac. Now, this is a data set and kind of insights pulled from the top 10 million sites. I have here that the data is still being processed and it's not officially published. That's also a lie, because yesterday they actually published some of these. So actually check out that website. There's some really cool insights on there for some of the metrics that they track. But yeah, we're looking at third parties, and they're not officially published yet. So I looked through the data to see kind of what insights I could pull out of it. So, how prevalent are third parties? Like, I'm sure you've all added them to your own websites. Well, 92% of websites will use a third party. So if you've managed to publish some sites without them, honestly, well done. They're usually unavoidable, and we'll add them to our sites. Usually we like to see analytics, how many people are using our site. We like to know that people are visiting. But yeah, on average, there's at least 5 third-party providers, and they'll make 78 requests. So a lot of data here, a lot of things moving around. And this is what a typical website would look like. Maybe some of you have built a site like this. I know I have. 54% of sites use Google Tag Manager and Google Analytics, and then 22% are using the Facebook Metapixel, and 36% of sites are using Google Ads, which a little bit scary. I don't personally use Google Ads because I think they're super ugly and they're super slow. And I think, won't get into Google Ads right now. So yeah, privacy concerns. When we use third-party scripts, we're basically giving these scripts full permission of our users' data in some instances. So we know this is the case for advertising networks, right? So obviously Google Ads needs to track everything. The Metapixel, Taboola, there's heaps of them around. But there's some surprising third-party scripts that are tracking way more than they should as well. Things like share this, add this. They collect way too much data. So if you're using either of those, please delete it right now. But also reCAPTCHA. So reCAPTCHA is doing very advanced, like fingerprinting. So it's collecting heaps and heaps of data about the user's device and location, things like this. And what's happening with that data? I don't know. And yeah, things are getting worse. Browser fingerprinting has actually become an industry, and a lot of money is going into it. So being able to uniquely identify someone, an anonymous visit, just based on their device and any sort of metrics they can pull around the IP address, things like this. And these ad networks and things like that are getting quite sneaky. They're implementing CNAME cloaking, which allows them to basically hide the fact that, they're loading the script. So that's that one. And poor cookie compliance. I hate cookies like anyone else. Well, I don't hate cookies. I hate cookie consent banners. They're really annoying. But unfortunately, that's all we have at the moment. And yeah, sites just aren't really implementing them to consent requirements, or if they are, they're using kind of sneaky dark patterns to make sure you always click accept. And this is just a little infographic from ghostery.com. They're a privacy web extension for Chrome. And this is just some of the data they've pulled from their own users. So you can see here, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of data being collected and slowing down our sites. Security. So when we load a third-party script from someone else, we're basically saying, hey, you are going to solve my problem. I have a problem. I need a chat widget. I need, payments, whatever it is. And we're trusting that they keep this script secure, that when our users are loading it on their browser, nothing sneaky is going on. Well, only 23% of sites will use integrity checks on these scripts. That means these scripts can be updated at any time and basically take over your website. So we give a lot of power to third-party scripts, and we don't really ask too much of them. The reason why most of the third parties don't like to give integrity checks is because they like to have the ability to update the script at any point. So it's definitely a trade-off, but I don't think it's a good trade. We're not very good at implementing content security policies. Shout out to Nuxt Security. Does a great job of this, but less than 19% of sites will set this up, which basically gives scripts full access to do whatever they want. And yeah, these attacks are getting more frequent. So I think it was last year, the polyfill.io incident happened. If you don't know, polyfill.io it was basically kind of allowing you to use newer browser features in older browsers. Got sold to a Chinese company, and those new owners decided, hey, we have access essentially to 100,000 sites. Let's do something sneaky. So not good. And these attacks are getting more frequent. So this is how I'm feeling about third-party scripts at the moment. It's not really looking good. And yeah, we're not over yet. So performance concerns. Obviously, third-party scripts are bad for performance. We know this. So generally, your IMP scores are going to get hurt. So if you're using any scripts like Hotjar, Clarity, things that are tracking the entire user session, it's not good. It's not good, right? These scripts tend to have like this waterfall loading pattern. And when we start looking into optimizing our website, we'll learn pretty quick that we want to avoid these waterfall style loadings. So when we load a third party, we can't really do anything about this, and we just kind of have to deal with how they've optimized these scripts themselves. And yeah, we're paying a legacy browser tax with all these scripts because these scripts need to work for every website, and every website includes websites that may still be supporting dead browsers. So through some of your third parties, you might be shipping polyfills for IE, for example. So not ideal, right? And this is just like an example of some of the third parties and their their total blocking time for them. So we can kind of see here who's the worst offenders. Stripe, maybe that's a bit alarming, but it's because they're doing all this fingerprinting for fraud. So it can be very useful, but we need to kind of weigh up, when are we checking users for fraud versus when are we just trying to give them the first impression of a website. But yeah, some of these guys have no right being here. Like Intercom is just ridiculously slow. And yeah, you can see because we're using so many third parties, we have to start implementing third parties to manage our third party cookies. So you have things like CookieBot, right? So that itself is quite slow. So we're not really in a good situation here. But all that's good, right? We know they're evil now. So we use Nuxt, and we want to know specifically how these third-party scripts affect our Nuxt apps. So let's imagine we have a little Nuxt app here. This is we have our Nuxt app entry, which is going to contain Vue router, unhead, all our plugins and stuff like that. And we have, let's say, a Google Analytics script here. Now, both of these are not going to block the HTML parsing, as we have async there and type module, which is essentially the equivalent of defer. So what's going to happen when we load this file here? Well, we pass the HTML, and immediately we're going to fire off these two network requests. Now, straight away, for users who have very low bandwidth, you're going to have the network competing over, which file gets most of that bandwidth. For modern internet, that's not really a problem. It can deal with this quite easily. So yeah, both of these scripts download, and then we're in a situation where, let's say Google Analytics manages to load in just a few milliseconds before our Nuxt app. Well, Google Analytics needs some time to set up on the main thread. I'm not exactly sure what it's doing in this time. I did a quick benchmark, and it was around 15 seconds. So during that 15 milliseconds, our Nuxt app, even though we've loaded in our entry script, is blocked from actually starting. So that's going to delay everything. It's going to delay your app interactivity. So not good. So this is just one script. We can imagine if we're using the 5, right? So I think this GIF is perfect. It kind of sums up everything I'm trying to say. Nuxt is not its own special little bubble. It's just another script that you're trying to kind of push through. And most people set up their third parties in a way where this is exactly what's happening. So we want to avoid this. We want to try and make some order out of what's happening here, make the Nuxt bubble bigger. So yeah, look, we can use third-party scripts quite easily at the moment. We have usehead, the unhead composable, and yeah, quite simple, right? We have our source and we have async. Please make sure you're using async or defer in your scripts. And yeah, we're just going to call a function that this script is going to provide on the window. So you might have spotted the issue already, but we run Nuxt full stack, right? So we can't just use window in a Nuxt component. So we need to check for that. Great, Nuxt has this great import meta client, which is going to tree shake this code from the server build. However, we then have another issue. Track is undefined. So what's happening here? Well, the script hasn't loaded. So how can we tell that the script is actually loaded in? There's some kind of smart ways to do it, but we're feeling a bit lazy. So we're just going to wait 1 second. And look, this code works. Like all we're doing is like tracking some analytics, so we don't really care. It doesn't need to run at any specific time. We just want to send this data off at some point. So this works, but you can see here that the developer experience wasn't very nice. Having to rely on all these little hacks. We're missing types. We can still run into errors if ad blockers are blocking this script. And if we want to kind of use this code in other components, we have even more issues. So yeah, all these problems lead us to Nuxt Scripts. And Nuxt Scripts is trying to kind of raise the bar on performance, privacy, and security. We can't fix everything, but at least, yeah, we can get the bar a bit higher. Developer experience, we can definitely solve developer experience. If Nuxt is good at one thing, that's it. And yeah, we do this through some composables and the script registry. So useScript is the heart of Nuxt Scripts. It's actually a unhead composable that Nuxt exports itself. And you'll see the syntax is like fairly straightforward. The only thing that might be look a bit strange is this use function. And all this is doing is kind of creating this mapping from our script to the actual API that it adds to the window. So for Google Analytics or Google Tag Manager, you might have the data layer here. So what's this doing behind the scenes? Well, when we're rendering this on the server, all we're going to do is add a link tag. And this link tag says, hey, if the network is free, if you're not doing anything, can you go and get this script and preload it for me? Now, when we hydrate our Nuxt app, we are actually going to insert the script tag and say, hey, I want to actually run this script now. And if everything goes right, then we're going to make sure our script is going to run immediately after Nuxt finishes hydrating, making sure that our Nuxt app is interactive and can be fully used as quickly as possible. Now there's some cool features within useScript. So on loaded, this guarantees that the script instance is actually available. Very handy. We have the useScript trigger element. So I highly recommend you use this if you can. It is a way to only load the script when there's a certain element event happening. In this instance here, we are going to load the script when a button becomes visible. So very easy way to make sure we're not loading these scripts on that first load, and we can kind of progressively enhance our app with these third-party scripts. Likewise, we have the use script trigger consent, which is for helping you with cookie consent, making sure that we have the user's permission to actually download the script before we go and execute it. So proxy, proxy is like an interesting one. It lets you call functions on this script as if it had already loaded in. So in this instance here, we're calling track, but maybe the script hasn't actually loaded yet. So any calls on this proxy accessor is going to queue that function call. So if you're using analytics, this is very handy. You don't need to use unloaded. You can just throw it in here and trust that it's going to work if the script loads. Now, of course, we have type safety. You know, we're Nuxt. We like types. Usually, you won't need to provide these, as the types can be inferred from the use function, but they're there if you need them. And yeah, we have full control over like this script lifecycle. We can set a manual trigger and then load it whenever we want. We can call this warm-up function, which will add that link. We can remove it, see what the status is, gives you full control. Okay, script bundling is definitely one of my favorite features. It kind of solves this performance, security, privacy issues off the bat, which is when we build our Nuxt app, it's going to go and download the script and self-host it. Now, this isn't advisable for every third-party script, so it is opt-in. So yeah, have a look and see if it makes sense for the scripts you're using, but definitely a win. Yeah. We have the script registry. So at the moment we have, I guess, 22, because that looks even, third-party scripts that we support. And there's more coming. We have a few in the pipeline. And yeah, we want to be like this go-to solution for any third party you need, instead of having to go and download all these one-off modules that just install the script for you. And just a quick note on using it. So the left, we have just a global setup. So if we don't care about interacting with the API that is exposed from using this script, then we can just use this, nice and easy. And on the right, this is more programmatic way to use it. If we want to access these underlying APIs. And just some features for it. We validate that you're actually providing the correct options to initialize the scripts. All the registry scripts in the documentation will tell you how you can set them up with environment variables. Fully typed, of course. And these are all the registry scripts are built on top of Vue Script, which in turn is built off Vue's head. So you can use any feature you can use in either of those. In this instance, we're, again, going to only load the Google Analytics script when a button becomes visible. We also ship facade components. So these are very important for performance if you're loading in heavy libraries. And just quickly, what a facade component is we're rendering a little widget, just using our markup, our HTML and CSS, and we're going to make it look like the real thing. So we're going to try and make a little YouTube player with, some tailwind, something like that. And the trick is that when we have a good idea that the user is actually going to click in to interact with this, then we load in all the scripts. So you can see the power of this in these benchmarks. So it's a bit small, but yeah, like 46% faster for the YouTube embed. And of course it is, because we're not loading any scripts, right? So definitely useful if you're using any of these providers. And just a quick note on facade components, they're headless. So yeah, we don't tell you how they should look. We give you like a head start, but it's on you to kind of style it how you need. We handle all the loading states. So if you need to fall back to an error, if you want to do something while it's loading, very easy to set up. And we have this prop here above the fold, which will allow the component to provide some extra performance benefits just from using that prop. So where next for Nuxt Scripts? So we are in kind of like a beta stage at the moment. We're still kind of working out the final features, but web worker support is definitely a priority. We want to implement Partytown with these scripts, make it seamless to use. Partytown is known to be a bit buggy, so still need to figure out some edge cases there. More registry scripts, of course. We're looking at how Cloudflare Zeraz handles their third parties. So we're looking to kind of pull some of that functionality into Nuxt itself, or Nuxt Scripts itself. iframe script sandboxing, very cool way to kind of restrict what a script can do when you install it. And growing the community. So yeah, we need people to use Nuxt Scripts, right? To put more energy into it. So yeah, we've taken on quite a few contributors, and anyone looking to contribute themselves would be more than welcome to the project. And that's it. You've made it to the end of the last talk. Thank you very much for your time. It's been a privilege to be here. And yeah, let's connect.
We do have a few questions for you. So
Sure.
to get started, what are the key benefits of using Nuxt Script over traditional script loading methods like using plugins?
Yeah, so I kind of highlighted this in this slide where you kind of, you're in this situation where you're trying to manage the server side and client side. So that's pretty easy to solve with like a client in the plugin name. I guess you get all these types, and you get this nice kind of script loading API. So you can easily hook in to know when a script actually loads, when it doesn't load, what the status of the script is. And you also get an easy way to kind of share it around your components. So if you need to call the underlying APIs from these scripts, you can do that very simply, whereas you're going to have a bit of a mess trying to accomplish it through setting it up in plugins.
Great, thank you. Are there any specific scenarios where you wouldn't recommend using Nuxt Script?
So yeah, it's an interesting one. We try through the registry scripts to pre-configure things for the use case that makes sense. So for example, if you're using Cloudflare Analytics, we want to actually insert the script before hydration, because Cloudflare is trying to monitor all the web vitals. So there's certain scripts that need to be kind of configured very delicately. So it may not make sense to use Nuxt Scripts when you're using those. For example, as well, we add in these privacy attributes, which is the referrer, whatever attribute it is, and cross-origin. These two attributes break some scripts. So you might run into like a headache of like, why is cross-origin, blah, 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 error. And yeah, that's because we are implementing better default privacy settings, which can be annoying to debug if you're not familiar with it.
For sure, thank you. All right, last question. Is there any specific cookie consent library that you would recommend to use for handling the consent status before loading a script?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm kind of like partially immune to, I've been partially immune to the whole cookie banner issue so far, so I haven't implemented one myself. I think if you can get away with implementing it yourself, I would recommend that, because a lot of these cookie consent libraries are very bloated. they're loading in a bunch of UI, things like this. But I understand that it gets a bit, the legal issues related to cookies get way over people's heads. So I can't point you in a specific direction. I'm sorry.
That's so helpful. Well, thank you so much, Harlan. We greatly appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you, everyone.